Hi Quilt Escape fans, I'm back today to talk about the flying geese border that you need to make to go around your quilt. And this is the Medallion quilt that I'm going to show you the finished result in just a few minutes. But first I'll show you the step-by-step process. You're going to start with 7.5-inch large squares, and you're going to have 4-inch smaller squares. The big square is going to be light and your small squares are going to be dark. That's the difference from the tall pine block. You can also watch the tall pine video, but this video is showing it in the colorway that it should be. So dark outside with small squares and large square is the light. So I just thought I'd show you today the use of my original tool. And here what you're doing is you're placing the tool on at the same time as I have the squares layered, and you align the center line of the tool from corner to corner, and you draw on either side with your friction pin. So it's very handy in that you don't have to place your tool more than once. But I just thought I'd show you that it does equal the 3.5-inch on your triangle tool. So if you've bought the triangle tool, it's basically placing the 3.5-inch line on either side and drawing it. And then once you've done the drawn lines, you're going to take this to your sewing machine and you're going to sew it. And I'm just going to do that real quick for you. Make sure these are lined up, and you should probably pin them. And I'm going to just tell you for the demo purpose, I'm not going to pin. I'm just going to start right off just so that I can facilitate this little process for you. And you'll notice these two are going to meet right here in the center. I'm on the line, I'm going to turn it around, and then I'm going to sew it down the other way, the other side, on the other line. So here we go, sink the needle. All right, and we'll just cut those threads. Now what we're going to do is just rotary cut right down the middle. And for the demo, I'm only going to do 2 of them right now, only because in the interest of time, because I really want to talk today. So we have 2 pieces, and right here is where I didn't want to cut all the way through. Always do better standing up. There we go. Okay, so we have 2 pieces that look like this, but I'm going to work with one of them right now. You had 4 squares. You're going to press the seam allowances away from the center piece, and then you're going to place the next square. We only need 1. I'll save the other one for the other piece. And we've already marked our lines, so we're just going to put this one on. And what I'm going to suggest, and you see I am finger pressing right now. You would go to the iron, you would use your iron and press it flat and not fool around like I'm doing because I'm in a video. So you would definitely go to the iron. I'm going to pin it so it doesn't move, okay? All my outside edges, and this is important, all my outside edges are lined up. That's very important. You don't want them showing on the other side. So now you're going to sew down those 2 lines, and you'll cut it in the middle, and you'll have 2 of the flying geese you need. The other piece will give you the extra 2. But for today's purposes, and I also want to show you this trick. You can start right here in the center, which is probably the best place to start. And the reason I say that is I can see instantly whether or not I'm lining up where I need to. Okay, and the line, don't like that, don't sink that, don't stitch that, hang on. down. Now, I like that. That's better. Have to make sure you start off correctly. Staying on the line is really super important. Now I'm cutting at the end of that and I'm coming right back. I'm going to put the presser foot down. I want to make sure that I'm right where I need it to be. Sink that needle. Stay on the line. Now, do you notice that pin is going to be in my way? Got to move him. There you are. Okay. So we're going to cut right down the center of this. I'm going to cut standing up because I always do a better job. Now this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend the ruler over 1/4 inch from the sewn line, and I'm going to trim it. I'll trim off that top. I'll trim off this extra, and that's just getting rid of my little dog ears. And over here, I'm going to do the same thing. And this is where that 1/8 of an inch will be. Sometimes I like to show that because that 1/8 of an inch is what you have extra when you cut out the pieces. A lot of people say, well, aren't you wasting a lot of fabric? You decide. I don't think so. And for the ease of rotary cutting without 1/8 of an inch, I think it's totally worth throwing away that 1/8 of an inch scrap. So then you're just going to go to your iron then and press that over, and you'll get 2 pieces, 2 flying geese out of this unit. That's 1/2 of the square right there. So you'll get 2 of them. So I've got 2 more. Doesn't want to stay there because it's not pressed. And keep in mind I had another piece to do. But first it needed pressing and then this piece. So you'll follow this, the cutting directions in the information that you're going to download on quiltescape.com. And when you're on quiltescape.com, you look for lesson 4. And this will have all of the lodge block, and then it will have the sashing and the finished instructions. So make sure you do that. All right, so now we're going to move right on into, once you've made these, and I'll just carry some over that I've already pressed to the actual quilt to show you what we're going to do with them. And obviously you're going to join them together. So let me just kind of move some things out of our visual screen that we don't need right now. We're going to put this down because we're getting ready to open up the whole piece over here for your viewing enjoyment. I'm just going to move that off to the side, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. When you start to assemble the sashing block, not the sashing, but the outside flying geese block, what you're going to do is set them out in pairs. So you're going to take these and make sure the dark is to the dark, as you can see that I'm doing right here, and you're going to put them right sides together, and you're going to start sewing them right here. And I'm going to start again with a tag because I told you, as what's happened so many times before, is that the seams are not always locked together there at the first few stitches. Now when you get down here, if you want this to lay flat, all you have to do is press one of these seams in the opposite direction. You can come back and clip that later, but I found that to be very helpful in joining them together. So I'm just going to do 4 of them for you to see the process. And I'm going to push one of these seams down. When you're sewing, you're going to feel it. You'll know what I'm talking about. All right, let's stop right there. We'll use this to clip between the threads, take off the tag, and now you've got 2 of these joined together, looking like this. So once you've taken all 40 of these and sewn them into pairs, you're going to create a border, and you're going to need 10 of them to create each side. So I'm going to just go back and I'll sew another one together so you'll see 4 at a time. This is how you do it. But first you start by creating pairs. Very easy to do. Making the flying geese is so simple to do. Okay. Then obviously you're going to go press. I want to say something about the pressing. I found out that with the number of seams that are in the border, your best bet is actually to press these seams open, not to one side, if you want it to fit onto your quilt. And now we're going to talk about that. I'm going to quickly take the sewing machine down now. We're going to just turn it off. I'll pass that to Drew. And we're just going to push this down. And this is one of my favorite parts about this koala cabinet, is how it just goes down out of your view. So now you're going to be able to see everything. We'll push the chair back out of the way. And voila, we have a quilt. And the quilt has already been put together for you. I'm very, very excited about how it looks and the arrangement of blocks. I don't want you to feel that you have to follow my arrangement as far as where I put the blocks. I gotta back this guy up because I'm stepping on him. You choose what you like and put them together. What's important for you to know is to get this to the point of adding the sashing border or adding the flying geese border, you have to put this part of it together. And I want to show you how I did it. It is in your written instructions, but you're going to be working with a long sashing strip out here, which you will have to piece more than one strip to get that, okay? But for the video, you can see this is a 2.5 inch wide strip. I did piece to get this long enough to fit. But the first thing you're going to do after you cut the number of strips is you're going to put, once you pick your blocks, you're going to put a sashing strip under 3 of them. Only 3. This is your first row right here. Right here. Then I'm going to walk over to this side. This is your 3rd row. And you're going to do the same thing where you put 1, 2, and 3 sashing strips to join the 4 blocks in a row. Then for both of these, and this is what's important, make sure, because some of these blocks have an orientation, you want to make sure your outside sashing strip is on the outside edge. If I put it over here, then I'm going to mess this whole thing up. So I need to make sure that the blocks on the 3rd row are the orientation I want. Like for instance, these trees are good blocks to have on the side of the lodge, because I know right away, okay, this is my outside edge over here. And the same thing over here, this is your outside edge. So this final first row is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks with 3 sashing strips in between and 1 long on the outside. And this one over here, your 3rd row, will be the same thing. It will be the 4 blocks with 3 sashing strips and 1 long one on the outside. We're not ready for this. We're not ready for the corners or any of that yet. So just don't worry about that yet. Now, your center row. Your center row, you're going to have 2 blocks joined with a 13-inch sashing strip. And you will pick which ones you want. And here's the bottom row down here. Can you see me, Drew? Can't see that low?
No.
We'll adjust the camera then so they can see it. Because there's 2 blocks down here too. We got to make sure they can see it all. All right. So this is my bottom row, and these two blocks are joined with a 13-inch strip right here. Then what you're going to do is at the top and the bottom of the lodge block, you're going to be sewing a 27.5-inch strip to the top and to the bottom. Okay? Once you have that, you're going to put this row here of the top blocks onto this sashing strip. Then you'll sew this bottom row to the bottom sashing strip of the lodge. And the final thing that you do for your middle row is that you create this sashing block. This sashing strip. This sashing strip is made up of a 13-inch strip, a 2.5-inch square, and a 27.5-inch strip, and another 2.5-inch square, and another 13-inch strip. So you'll make two of those long sashing strips exactly alike. So 13, a square, 27.5, 2.5-inch square, and a 13. And this final strip will be added on both sides to the middle panel. So that's the way it works. So then you'll join your first row to the middle panel right here, and then you'll come back and you'll sew your third row to the middle panel, and that seam will be right here. Your final sashing strip will be the top sashing strip and the bottom sashing strip. They are exactly alike. So you will have to piece it. This isn't going to be long enough. And you will measure it. And this is where you're going to pin. All of these are going to be pinned on so carefully. You will take the time to pin them. Your cornerstones will give you the joining areas. That's very helpful. If I just went with a solid strip there, you're not necessarily going to have this looking straight. So it's very helpful to have these squares here as your eyeball to get them straight. So you will be adding your 2.5-inch strips or squares to this long piece sashing. Now what I did was measure this quilt from this inside sashing row all the way across to right here. This isn't on. So I had to measure the quilt right across the center. Whatever that measurement is, I cut the top and bottom sashing strip. So I pieced it, then I cut it to fit the measurement through the center of the quilt. Once you do that, you sew your 2.5-inch squares on, and then you add them to the top and bottom by carefully pinning. Now, the other thing that you can do to help yourself out is to fold strips in half. Fold them in half. Quarter them. Mark it with a pin. Do the same thing with the quilt so that you have a halfway point and a quarter point and a quarter point. That way you match your sashing strip header and bottom piece to those halves and quarters. That's going to make a huge difference also. And then you can smooth it out through there and it should be no problem at all. Once you have all that and you're pressing your seams out and away from the centers, you will then start doing your pieced flying geese border, which we just demonstrated how to make the fast flying geese. And you'll notice I already made this mistake, so I wanted to point it out. Look how easy it would be to just sew it on that way. I mean, and I did. On one side of the quilt, I had it all done, looked up here, put it on the wall, and realized, oh my goodness, I have this thing turned around. So I had to take off this whole side and turn it back around. And the reason I like the light up against this sashing strip is I felt like it needed that contrast. And then I'm getting this nice little zigzag look on that outside edge. So it was very important that I press these seams open because it didn't fit well. Then you've got to realize you're talking about a straight strip here with one seam, and here you're talking about 10 seams. So that's why they have to be pressed open. So, and they will fit. It does fit, and it measures out really well. I think it's about 60.5 inches at this point, and then it comes out to about 72.5, something like that. But you then will have a completed border all the way around. I want you to put your sides on first, then you're going to cut a 3.5-inch square. And let me tell you, I had Drew back here. We went through about 4 different colors. We finally settled on this light green. Do audition different colors because you'll be surprised what a difference that will make. I thought it was going to be red. I put red up there. I didn't like it at all. So I wound up with this other shade of green and thought in the long run that really looked better with the whole quilt and brought out the whole quilt. Then once I got this side on, that side on, and pinned these on, I added a 2-inch finished strip out here. The reason I'm adding a 2-inch strip is because I want to protect these seams. All these seams are too much to hand off to my quilter on the long arm and have her deal with. The fact, number one, they're pressed open. They're going to pull as she rolls that quilt. So we need to protect them by encasing them in a strong 2-inch piece border out here. Now, I did intentionally try to match this color. So I didn't have enough of this green, but I got the same value as close as I could. Cut this 2-inch. And I also want to talk about this being crosswise grain. This is not a lengthwise grain strip. It is crosswise because all of this is a mix match and most of it is crosswise. And I thought in the interest of it giving and taking equally, I needed to do a crosswise strip. But remember what we talked about in the last video with best press. I can't say enough about that. I'm moving over here, but I plan to come right back. Okay, this is my best press, is in this little spritzer bottle. When you do a narrow border on the outside like this, before you ever put it on, best press the heck out of it. Size it. Make it as strong and as durable as you can. It cannot hurt the quilting. So do that, then pin it on. Find the middles, find the quarters, and pin it on and sew it. And do the sides, then do your top and bottom, and again you're going to measure through the middle. You'll get your measurement, and then you'll cut this border to fit it. And actually, because you don't have a square, you're going to be measuring with the sides of the dark green all the way across and do it through the middle of the quilt. Now I've chosen to stop here because you see my wall hanger. That's as much as I can get on a wall hanger. I'm not making this one for the bed quilt. I'm going to do the row by row quilt, and that one is the one I'll make as a bed quilt. So I've chosen to make this as a wall hanger. I'm hoping to have this at Deer Creek Lodge for the welcome quilt, so that this would be what you would see when we get there. Hopefully you'll see that this year. I should have it all done and hanging up for you for display. You then would do your layering up and obviously quilting and binding. And when I do that binding, I'm going to be taking off a little bit out here and bringing that other edge around. So that'll make a little difference as well. And I'm probably either going to do a dark brown or I may match it with the dark green. Not sure just yet. That's really all I have on this video, and I think when you get the instructions and you download those from my website. There's going to be directions in great detail. It's going to go over everything that I've told you, the sizing, everything about it, and you'll have it all divided up, and it'll make perfect sense to you. But you can always refer back to the video. I've really enjoyed the process. I hope you have too. It's been quite a bit of work to make a new block each time, but it was so worth it, and I really like the outcome of the final quilt, and I hope that you enjoy it too. So here we are, the Deer Creek Lodge quilt finally sewn together and ready to be handed to my long arm quilter. All right, until next time, we'll see you.